you used there. Why was it a toxic environment for you?
It was toxic because LA, people want to be around famous people. There's a lot of distractions. Even the gym I was at, it's kind of a celebrity gym in a way, and things weren't locked in like a training camp. And in hindsight, looking back, it was like, wow, like being here and just being in just that full focus mode is a huge difference. I just my dedication just wasn't there. It wasn't there, and when you take those long layoffs, you don't realize it because you think you're just going with emotions. Like, okay, like I'll get ready for a fight, but it's not just a fight.
In November 2025, Jake Paul's team called Ryan Garcia's camp and put $25 million on the table. Most people have no idea that conversation ever happened, and even fewer know what came next. The promoter who blocked it, the public explosion between fighter and manager, the fury Garcia couldn't contain, and then the decision that turned it all into the most important fork in the road of his career. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what happened and why the deal Garcia walked away from led directly to the belt he wears today.
Gonna happen. Ryan Garcia fights for DAZN, and Jake Paul fights on Netflix. I mean, that's pretty much the bottom line. Golden Boy has a contract with DAZN. Ryan Garcia has a contract with Golden Boy. And that's just the way it is. I mean, this is business. Ryan Garcia's probably going to go on a rant saying, oh, you're keeping me from making money.
If you clicked this video, you already know Ryan Garcia won the WBC welterweight title on February 21st, 2026 against Mario Barrios. Most people watching right now think the path to that title shot was fairly straightforward. Garcia lost to Romero, took some time to recover from hand surgery, Barrios was available, the WBC sanctioned it, done. But here is what happened in the months before that title fight that almost nobody in the mainstream boxing world connected into a single story. In October 2025, Gervonta Davis's planned exhibition against Jake Paul collapsed after Davis was hit with a civil lawsuit in Miami. Paul's team, scrambling for a replacement, called Garcia's camp. Garcia was reportedly offered $25 million to step in. Garcia wanted to take it, and then his promoter, Oscar de la Hoya, publicly shut it down. Not in private, not diplomatically, but on camera, on social media with the entire boxing world watching. Garcia went nuclear, and then, weeks later, he signed to fight Mario Barrios for the WBC world title. We are breaking this down in 3 parts. First, exactly how the Paul Garcia talks happened and why De La Hoya killed them. Second, what Garcia said after the block and why his anger was completely understandable. And third, the twist that reframes the entire story and why the decision that enraged Garcia in November 2025 was probably the best thing that ever happened to his career.
Environment I was in. If you're in a toxic environment, it's just not going to work out for you. So it was just in my spirit to change things all the way. And I just let God guide me, and he guided me to Dallas, Texas, and with a great trainer like Derek.
To understand the full weight of this story, you have to know where Ryan Garcia stood in October and November 2025. He had not won a fight since December 2023. His April 2024 majority decision win over Devin Haney, the biggest win of his career, dropping Haney 3 times, had been overturned to a no contest after he tested positive for Ostarine. He was suspended for a year by the New York State Athletic Commission, fined, and had his contracted purse of over $1 million forfeited. He came back in May 2025 against Rolando Romero and lost, a unanimous decision. He went down in round 2. He was flat, uninspired, and clearly not at his best. A fighter who once looked like the future of boxing was 1-2 with a no contest in his last 4 official results. He also had hand surgery. He was dealing with legal issues, a public mental health episode that led to WBC President Mauricio Suleiman temporarily expelling him from the organization, and an ongoing complicated relationship with his promoter Oscar de la Hoya that had already nearly broken down multiple times. And into that situation, Garcia sitting at one of the lowest points of his professional career, Jake Paul's team made a call. And this is where the story gets complicated. Now, most people who followed the Jake Paul-Gervonta Davis story knew that Davis's fight collapsed and Paul needed a replacement. But here's the piece of the story that barely made it into mainstream coverage: the full inside account of what happened between Garcia, Paul, and De La Hoya. Paul's team contacted Garcia's camp after Davis's legal situation made the November 14th exhibition fight untenable. Garcia was among the first names floated as a replacement, and the offer, confirmed by Garcia himself on his Kick livestream, was real. He described it as easy money, a reported $20 to $25 million purse. He wanted to take it. Oscar De La Hoya's response was immediate and public. On November 1st, 2025, De La Hoya uploaded a video to Instagram and gave an interview to Fight Hub TV. The message was unambiguous. Ryan Garcia and Jake Paul weren't close at all. They called us. I shut it down right away. It's just not going to happen. It can't happen without my blessing. De La Hoya's reasoning? Garcia fights on DAZN. Paul fights on Netflix. Garcia has a contract with Golden Boy. Golden Boy has a contract with DAZN. Ryan Garcia has a contract with Golden Boy, and that's just the way it is. This is business. You have to go by the law, by the rules. He even preemptively addressed Garcia's expected reaction. Ryan Garcia is probably going to go on a rant saying, "Oh, you're keeping me from making money." No, you have a contract with DAZN. You have a contract with Golden Boy. It just doesn't happen that way. De La Hoya was right that Garcia would react, but Garcia's reaction went further than a rant. But that's not even the most important part of this story. And this is where the real story, the one that makes this the most consequential decision in Garcia's career, finally comes into full view. Garcia's response to the block was not quiet, not diplomatic. He posted publicly, "It is not my fault that I couldn't fight Jake Paul. I would have run that with him and then have a real fight in February. I've been preparing myself for a while now. All good though. Those who got bad intentions never win in the end." World Boxing News reported that De La Hoya had received what it described as an eye-watering DM from Garcia that basically told him where he could shove his contract. The relationship between promoter and fighter, already strained through years of disputes, threatened departures, and public disagreements, hit one of its lowest points. Garcia felt betrayed. From his perspective, $25 million was sitting on the table, real money from a real fight, at a moment when he had not won a bout in over 2 years and desperately needed financial and professional momentum. And his promoter killed it without asking him. But here is what De La Hoya did at the exact same moment he was blocking the Paul fight. He announced what he saw as the better path. What we want to build with Ryan is something special, just like we did with Canelo Alvarez and so many other fighters. We want to make sure he is on the right path and trajectory to get to the world title, to become a boxing superstar, and that wasn't it. He pointed to Barrios. Imagine Ryan beating Barrios, something an older Manny Pacquiao couldn't do. It would be a big accomplishment for Ryan, to finally become a world champion after all these years. Within weeks, the Barrios fight was official. February 21st, 2026, T-Mobile Arena, DAZN PPV, WBC welterweight world title on the line. Ryan walked into that arena in Las Vegas, the same building where Davis knocked him out 3 years ago and dropped Barrios in the first round. He dominated 12 rounds. The scorecards read 119-108, 120-107, 118-109. Terrence Crawford, the man who had beaten Canelo Alvarez, called Garcia's performance amazing. "It feels good to finally be a world champion," said Ryan. "It's something I've been dreaming of since I was 7 years old." He had walked away from $25 million in November. He won the WBC title in February. But here's what nobody is connecting, and once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Here's the twist that reframes the entire story of what Garcia walked away from. If Garcia had fought Jake Paul in November 2025, he would have been paid $25 million. He might have won, he might have lost. The Paul fight, regardless of result, would have placed Garcia firmly in the celebrity boxing category, a star who fights influencers and content creators for big money, not a world champion chasing a legitimate title. That label matters. It follows a fighter. Once you are in the exhibition category, the path back to genuine world championship contention becomes immensely complicated, both contractually and perceptually. The boxing world treats those two lanes as separate, and a Garcia who fought Paul in November 2025 is not the Garcia who gets the WBC title shot against Barrios in February 2026. Those two outcomes lived on different tracks. The decision De La Hoya made, the one Garcia publicly attacked as a betrayal, the one that cost Garcia $25 million in the short term, kept Garcia on the championship track, and the championship track led to the WBC belt. Now, as world champion, every fight Garcia has available is worth more than $25 million. The Davis rematch at 147 is worth potentially $150 million or more by De La Hoya's own projections. The Haney rematch for welterweight unification is one of the biggest fights in the sport. Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, every name Garcia is chasing carries world championship stakes and eight-figure purses. None of that exists if Garcia is the fighter who took $25 million to replace Davis on a Netflix exhibition card in Miami. It exists because he took the WBC title instead.
Oscar De La Hoya once told TMZ he hoped to eventually land Garcia the biggest contract in sports history. Garcia was furious at him in November 2025. By February 2026, Garcia was WBC world champion, and De La Hoya's long game had worked. The biggest deal Garcia walked away from turned out to be the smallest deal he could have made. Here's where we land. In November 2025, Ryan Garcia had $25 million on the table from Jake Paul's team. His promoter blocked it. Garcia went nuclear publicly and privately. The relationship nearly broke. And then, within weeks, Garcia signed for the WBC title shot against Mario Barrios. He dropped Barrios in round 1. He won 12 rounds. He became WBC world champion for the first time in his career. The deal Garcia walked away from, the one that enraged him, the one he called a betrayal, the one De La Hoya killed without asking him, was the decision that made every fight Garcia now has available worth more than any single payday Paul could have offered. Here is the question boxing has to sit with. Was Oscar De La Hoya right to block Garcia from taking $25 million? Or did Garcia deserve the right to make that call for himself, regardless of what it cost his championship trajectory? Drop your take below. If you want the full story on everything happening in boxing before it hits mainstream media, hit subscribe.